In this video, we're gonna be checking out the new amp cloning features in the Headrush Prime pedal board. What's up everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Taylor. If you came here from my other Headrush Prime first impressions video, welcome back. If this is your first time here and you wanna see some of my first impressions with this pedal, I will link that video down in the description below. But what we have here is we have a signal chain hooked up and I just wanna test the amp cloning features in the Headrush Prime pedal board. And I'm going to be attempting to clone this crank Rev1 Plus amplifier. The reason that I chose this amplifier is because it's kind of a unique amplifier. I have KT88 tubes in it as opposed to the 6550 tubes that come in it. And I just feel that, you know, it has some unique tones in there. So I feel like it's a good test for the amp cloning functionality of the Headrush Prime pedal board. But enough talking, let's get into it. We're going to jump right in here. We're gonna click the menu button and down here we have the amp cloner. We're gonna select that. It's gonna give us a warning not to plug the power output of our amplifier into the pedal board. Don't do that, it's a bad idea. We're gonna hit proceed here and then you're going to select what you would like to capture. In this case, we're doing an amp preamp if you're not sure. The Headrush Prime does a really good job of listing this stuff out for you and kind of explaining what each scenario is, so to speak. Now in step 2, after we have everything hooked up, which if you need help hooking it up, you can click this connection diagram here and you get this beautiful colored diagram that is pretty straightforward. Now the way that I have this hooked up is my guitar is plugged into the Headrush Prime pedal board and I have the amp hooked up to the pedal board via the diagram, but the differences that I have here that aren't shown in the diagram, I actually have a DI box going from the Headrush Prime pedal board into the amplifier to clean up the line noise and just make it so, you know, it's a little bit less noisy going in. And then I have the amp plugged into a load box coming out, and that is the signal that I am capturing with the Headrush Prime pedal board here. That way I get the power tube section of the amplifier and all the goodness that is in those KT88 tubes. So that's how I have it hooked up, if you're wondering. Now what we're gonna do is we're just going to turn the amp on and I'm going to play, and I wanna make sure the target range here is -6 dB. And you can see I'm going a little bit above that, so I'm gonna trim with this knob on the input here. And I'm hitting right about that -6 dB. Let's go ahead and hit next here. This is a really interesting thing about the Headrush Prime pedal board and something that I think you're probably gonna see a lot more of going forward as this technology just gets better and better. It actually asks you to put your current amp settings into the Headrush Prime, so that way it knows where your amp is set and it will take that into consideration when making a clone of your amplifier. So I'm gonna try and match this as close as I possibly can. My bass is way up, dude. My bass is like almost 90% maybe. My middle is probably somewhere around there. Treble looks about right. Presence looks about right. And then I'm gonna hit start clone. And we're starting the clone in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I like the countdown screen on this, it's a nice touch. Now this cloning process doesn't take a tremendous amount of time. The first thing that I noticed when I did this is it actually auto mutes the output while you're doing this, so you don't have to actually listen to all the weird algorithm sounds. I can actually hear them coming out of the load box right now, and I can hear the load box revving up like the amp is getting hit with a really hot signal. But yeah, we're moving right along. How are you guys doing? How's your day going? Good? Glad you're here. Very excited about this. Okay, now the amp cloning is done. That was actually pretty quick. Now we have the opportunity to compare the target amp to the amp clone. There's the target amp, meaning my crank. Here is the clone. Very hard to tell since I'm just listening to a preamp sound, and something that I really wish manufacturers would do, Headrush, if you're listening, is add an IR loader on the screen, so that way if you're capturing an amp or preamp sound, you can load an IR to kind of, you know, tweak it a little bit more so you're not just listening to the preamp sound. But they sound really close just, you know, from the preamp sound. It's not that fun to listen to. Let's go in here, let's hit save, and now we're gonna exit here and we're gonna go back to the signal chain. Now, before you do this, turn your amp off because if not, it will be very loud. Since we are routing this through the output and back into the microphone input, so go ahead and turn that off. I'm gonna hit exit. I'm gonna go to my rig here, and now you can see that I actually have the effects loop loaded up here as well as the clone. Let's go into the clone and load up the clone that we just made. So to do that, you'd go amp clone, load clone, and then select from the drop down, go to user, and we're gonna go Rev1 Plus, load. Let's set these settings back close to where I have them set on the actual amplifier. So this is what the clone sounds like, and I do have an IR loaded up here that was made with this 𝗦𝗍𝗃𝗏 and an X1A microphone. I use it all the time on my channel. If you would like that impulse response, it is available for free in my Discord server. There is more information on that down in the description, but this is what the clone sounds like. And then we do have these additional features here. We have a chug control, which is interesting. Here, let's see what the chug control does. It's almost like throwing a 10-band EQ on the pedal and just like cranking up the lows and the level. It adds a lot of like really girthy low end to your signal. And then here's sag. If you're familiar with these devices, you probably know what sag does, but it kind of acts like the compression or the power sag that you would get from a traditional amplifier. And you can add some of that in here if you would like. This one is very, very responsive. Let's just add a tiny bit of sag in there. Okay, so I have the amp plugged in through the effects loop on the Headrush board, and I have that loaded up in our signal chain here. That way we can directly compare the actual amp versus the amp clone with that IR in our signal chain, so we're not just listening to the preamp sound. This is the actual amplifier that I gotta turn on. Here's the clone. Amp. Clone. They sound really, really close. Now, something that I think would be kind of interesting is, let's see how the clone reacts to being boosted with the tube screamer inside of this unit versus how the actual amp reacts to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my tube screamer on here. Here's the actual amp. Here's the clone. So this is really interesting because one of the reasons that I really like this amplifier is when you hit it with a boost, you get this sort of like glassy top end that, you know, I wouldn't expect a clone or a capture or whatever to recreate because it's just sort of like a different signal path, you know what I mean? We go from manipulating the actual tubes in the amplifier to boosting like a snapshot of what that signal sounded like. But with that being said, I think the Headrush Prime does a really good job of coming, you know, within range of that. And I think the amp clone sounds really, really good. That's the clone, right? Yeah, it is. Okay. I just had to check to make sure I'm playing the clone because it's close enough to confuse me sitting next to it. And I should also mention, in all fairness, this Headrush Prime is still in beta at the time of making this video, so I only expect the amp cloning to get better and more accurate by the time you're seeing it, you know, when this product is available. So I want to try this on one more amplifier, and what can I plug in here that's like a little bit unique? Let's go with that. I have a Marshall Valvestate model 8100. It's kind of a unique amplifier, so I'm curious to see how the Headrush Prime handles cloning that amp. Let's do it. Okay, now we have the same setup. The only difference is I have swapped in the Marshall Valvestate 8100 model. And you might be asking yourself, why are you using a load box on a solid state amp? Because why not? Why not throw as many variables at this thing as possible and see how it handles them? You know what I mean? Let's go amp cloner here, and we're gonna go proceed. Again, we're capturing an amp, preamp. Let's check the sound here. Now I need to set, this is gonna be way different. Bass is at 100%, the middle is at like 50. I don't have a contour knob to dial in here, so that'll be a little bit interesting to see how it handles that. So it says right here, if your amp doesn't have a presence knob, to just leave it at 50%. Since the Valvestate does not have one, we'll do that. We'll leave it right at 50%. Let's start the clone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cloning time. Okay, we're all done. Let's check out the target amp. Here's the actual amp through the same IR. The clone. There's a similar thing going on, maybe like the top end isn't like 100% there, but it's definitely within range. This product is still in beta at the time I'm shooting this video, so it's only gonna get better. I'm thoroughly impressed with this. I'm very, very excited about the Headrush Prime, actually. I wish I could tell you guys right now. I have to wait to post this video until it's released. Is what it is, but yeah, it's very, very cool, man. I just want to tell all my friends about it because I think it's awesome. Now, if this was in a rack unit and I had the same beautiful color screen, but only in like, you know, a 3 or maybe 4U rack or something like that, that would be like my dream modeler, I think. I love the user interface. I've always loved the user interface and the layout of the Headrush products, but now that you can actually have these graphics in there that look more like pedals and stuff like that, I just think it's, man, and with the gold knobs and everything, it's just beautiful. Headrush, if you're listening, man, I don't know what the demand is for these things in rack units, but I personally would love a Headrush Prime in a rack unit. I think it'd be cool. Which one am I? Yeah, I'm using the clone. See, if I get confused while I'm playing it, I think that's a good sign. All right, shout out to Headrush for sending this thing out for me to demo for you guys. I really appreciate it. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys. It's gone forever.